Ladies and gentlemen, in every era, there are moments when those who seek truth quietly vanish from the stage of ordinary life. To the world, it looks like absence, retreat, or even loss. But beneath this disappearance lies a hidden process, one that mirrors the deep rhythms of nature itself. Just as winter conceals the secret labor of spring, so too does the withdrawal of the awakened conceal a transformation. Today, I invite you to reflect on this mystery of disappearance, not as an ending, but as the silent preparation for renewal. The awakening of the human spirit is never a loud event. It does not come with the clamor of trumpets or the applause of the world. It arrives like a quiet dawn, gently but irreversibly shifting the way one sees everything. For the one who awakens, life is no longer perceived in the same manner as before. The familiar landscapes of society, culture, and personal ambition begin to look less like ultimate realities and more like carefully constructed stages upon which everyone plays their part. The world, once so convincing, is revealed as a grand illusion. This revelation is not always comforting. To see through illusion is to realize that much of what once inspired passion or fear is nothing more than a mask, a projection of human desire and collective conditioning. What people chase with endless energy, money, reputation, status, control, suddenly appears like a child's game, important only to those still dreaming. The awakened one perceives the fragile scaffolding beneath these structures, how they rest not upon eternal truth, but upon shifting sands of opinion, expectation, and imitation. In this light, the most celebrated victories lose their weight, and the most feared losses lose their sting. Awakening is the cracking of the shell. It breaks the spell that kept one bound to roles and narratives that were never truly one's own. The illusion becomes visible in conversations that repeat endlessly without meaning, in traditions upheld without question, in ambitions inherited from others rather than born from the soul. What was once mistaken as reality reveals itself to be theater, and in that recognition comes both freedom and alienation. The freedom lies in the realization that one is no longer bound by the same rules. If the world is a stage, then one may step off of it. One may choose not to play the role assigned by society, family, or culture. This liberation is profound. It allows the individual to search for meaning beyond appearances. But the alienation is equally strong. To see through the illusion means standing apart from the crowd, no longer intoxicated by the same dreams that drive others. The awakened person often walks through life as if surrounded by sleepwalkers, moving in patterns of desire and fear, unable to see that the scenery is painted, not real. And yet, the illusion is not evil in itself. It serves a purpose. Humanity requires myths, structures, and roles to organize its collective life. The danger comes not from the existence of the illusion, but from identifying with it so fully that the deeper reality is forgotten. The spiritually awakened understand that the masks are useful, but they are still masks. The danger is not in wearing them, but in believing them to be the face. When the veil lifts, one sees that much of human striving is an attempt to avoid inner emptiness. People construct elaborate stories of success and failure because the silence within terrifies them. They build identities on titles, possessions, and relationships because they fear the formlessness of the soul. Awakening unmasks this fear, revealing that the emptiness itself is not a void but a door, an opening into the vastness of being. To embrace it is to discover that beyond the illusion lies a depth that cannot be measured by any worldly scale. This awakening also brings an acute awareness of symbols. Dreams, myths, and archetypes rise into consciousness with renewed power. One begins to notice how the world is speaking constantly in images and signs. What the unawakened dismiss as coincidence or fantasy becomes for the awakened a language of the soul. The illusion cracks, but behind it shines another reality, one woven of meaning rather than material appearances. The awakened person often withdraws from the frantic pace of the collective, not out of disdain, but because they can no longer participate in illusions with the same conviction. The applause of the crowd feels hollow, and the competitions that once seemed urgent appear as endless loops without substance. They do not reject the world entirely, but they engage with it differently, more playfully, more consciously, knowing that it is a stage, a dream, a reflection. In their silence, they listen for the deeper voice that whispers beneath the noise of society. To awaken is not to escape life, but to see it clearly. It is to live within the illusion while never confusing it with reality. It is to wear the mask when necessary, but to never forget that behind the mask lies the true face. And it is this recognition, the piercing through of illusion, that marks the first step toward freedom, authenticity, and wholeness. Withdrawal, in the life of the spiritually awakened, is not the retreat of a coward, nor the indifference of one who has given up on the world. It is something altogether different, an inner necessity, a movement of the soul away from the surface into depth. To those still entangled in the collective noise, this withdrawal may appear as detachment, even as a form of disappearance, but for the one undergoing it, it is the profound work of transformation, a journey into the hidden chambers of being where something new is quietly born. The world often confuses activity with meaning. It celebrates constant participation, endless engagement, the performance of roles that affirm belonging to the collective. Yet, for the one who has tasted awakening, such activity begins to feel empty, as though life has become a repetitive script with no room for authentic expression. Withdrawal arises when the soul refuses to keep enacting roles that no longer serve its growth. It is not rejection for its own sake. It is the natural shedding of old garments that have grown too tight. Transformation does not occur in the glare of constant performance. Just as a seed transforms beneath the soil, hidden from the eye, so too must the awakened person enter a kind of obscurity. This obscurity is not loneliness but incubation. In solitude, the fragments of the self, those neglected parts pushed into shadow by the demands of society, are invited back into the circle of awareness. Withdrawal allows for the meeting of the forgotten self, the confrontation with wounds, and the slow integration of what was once rejected. The one who withdraws does not do so lightly. To step back from the world is to risk misunderstanding, to endure the judgment of those who cannot see the purpose behind the retreat. Friends may say they have changed, society may call them unproductive, family may accuse them of indifference. Yet, beneath these judgments lies a truth that cannot be denied. Every act of transformation requires a death of what was. The withdrawal is the space in which the old identity dissolves, making way for the emergence of something greater. Silence becomes the companion of this process. In silence, the restless voices of the outer world lose their grip, and the deeper currents of the psyche begin to make themselves heard. At first, this silence can be unsettling, even frightening, for it reveals the chaos within. But if endured, it becomes the cradle of transformation. What appeared as emptiness slowly reveals itself as fullness, a richness of being that no outer achievement can provide. Through withdrawal, the person begins to encounter archetypal realities, those timeless patterns that dwell beneath the surface of personal experience. Dreams take on new significance, images from myth and symbol arise unbidden, and the individual realizes they are participating in something far larger than their personal story. They are not merely stepping away from society, they are stepping into the realm where the soul reshapes itself according to deeper laws. This transformation is often marked by paradox. On the surface, the person may appear still, inactive, even invisible. Yet within, there is intense movement, as though old foundations are being dismantled and rebuilt. The outer eye sees withdrawal as stagnation, but the inner eye recognizes it as metamorphosis. Just as the caterpillar seems to vanish into the cocoon, so too does the awakened one vanish from ordinary life, only to emerge later in a new form. The beauty of this process is that it is never purely personal. Though it begins in solitude, the transformation radiates outward. When the withdrawn individual re-enters the world, they do so not as the same person, but as one who carries a new presence, a depth that silently influences those around them. Their words may be fewer, but their being speaks with greater clarity. Their actions may seem simple, but they carry weight, for they are born from authenticity rather than conformity. Withdrawal, then, is not the end of engagement with life, but its renewal on a higher plane. It strips away the unnecessary, dissolves the false, and prepares the soul for a new alignment. In disappearing from the old stage, the awakened one is not escaping but transforming, so that when they return as a clearer expression of truth. Disappearance is often misunderstood as an ending, a fading into irrelevance, or a withdrawal that leaves nothing behind. Yet, in the life of one who has touched deeper currents of existence, disappearance does not signal death or defeat, but the quiet preparation for renewal. It is the passage through which the soul sheds what is no longer vital, releasing the weight of false identities so that something truer may take form. What looks like absence from the outside is, from within, the necessary clearing that makes space for new life. The rhythm of nature itself reflects this mystery. The tree sheds its leaves in autumn, and to the casual observer it may appear barren, lifeless, or in decline. But within the stillness of winter, hidden processes are unfolding. The roots grow deeper, unseen to the eye, preparing to nourish the burst of spring. The same pattern shapes the inner life of those who awaken. Their disappearance is their winter, a season of seeming emptiness that is, in truth, a season of profound renewal. When a person disappears from society's stage, they are not always rejecting life, but seeking to reclaim it in its essence. The applause of the crowd, the endless pursuit of recognition, and the compulsive need to belong to the collective narrative can no longer sustain them. In their absence, they do not dissolve into nothingness. Rather, they discover the fertile silence in which the seeds of a new self are planted. Renewal requires this disappearance, for the soil of the soul must be emptied of the old before it can be filled with the new. Such disappearance is often misunderstood by others. To friends and family, it may seem as though the person has abandoned ambition, withdrawn from responsibility, or grown indifferent to the world. But these judgments overlook the truth that renewal cannot take place while clinging to the same routines, the same expectations, the same masks. The act of vanishing is not abandonment. It is an act of devotion to the deeper unfolding of life. One steps out of sight in order to step into authenticity. During this period, the individual often enters a profound stillness. The endless chatter of the outer world gives way to an inner listening. Dreams intensify, symbolic visions arise, and the hidden layers of the psyche begin to speak. It is a descent into the unconscious, not as a prison, but as a sacred chamber where forgotten parts of the self wait to be reborn. This disappearance is not a collapse into darkness, but a journey into the womb of transformation, where the soul reconfigures itself according to deeper patterns. The renewal that comes from such disappearance is subtle. It does not announce itself with noise or spectacle. It emerges slowly, like the quiet unfurling of a flower at dawn. The individual reemerges, but they are not the same as before. Their voice carries a new resonance, their presence a new depth. Even their silence speaks, for it is charged with the weight of what they have endured and integrated. They do not return to play the same roles. They return with a different center of gravity, one that cannot be shaken by the illusions that once bound them. What disappears, then, is not the essence of the person, but the scaffolding of identity built to satisfy others. The masks, the pretenses, the compulsive performances, all of these fall away. What is renewed is the soul itself, freed from the clutter of false living. This renewal does not reject the world, but it re-engages with it on different terms. The individual participates again, but now from a place of authenticity rather than conformity. They bring back into the world the fruit of their silence, the wisdom of their absence, the clarity of their retreat. There is a profound paradox in this process. The more one disappears, the more one truly arrives. The more one withdraws from appearances, the more one embodies presence. Renewal is born out of disappearance because only in emptiness can fullness reveal itself. Only when the old has dissolved can the new be born. And so the quiet vanishing of the awakened is not a loss, but a hidden offering, a reminder that every ending is the beginning of a deeper unfolding. What may look like vanishing is, in truth, a return to essence. The spiritually awakened do not disappear into nothingness. They disappear into depth, into authenticity, into a silence that prepares them for rebirth. Their retreat is not a rejection of life, but a re-entry into it on new terms, clearer, freer, and truer. And so, let us not mistake absence for loss, but recognize it as the sacred space in which renewal is born. Thank you.